As always, as you know, we give all honor and praise to Jah our Father and His Son, Joshua the Messiah, and we respect all the names that different individuals and different groups use in the earth here to refer to the Most High and His Son. And we just always encourage those that they sanctify that name in their life by keeping the testimony and also the Most High's commandments in love and truth. Today's date is the 11th day of Elul, the 6th month for the year 6221 from creation, equivalent to July 17th. As you can hear, it's the second Sabbath of the month, the 11th, which is July 17th, as we move through. Looking on our yearly almanac, again, we're over here on the 11th in the red. This is the last month of the hot summer season. But of course, as we know that Elul and Ethanim are the middle months of that 6-month summer season, so they will be a lot warmer than the beginning. Well, supposed to be, but we know weather can change. So we got about maybe 2 more weeks, 3 more Sabbaths before we have the Feast of Trumpets. Now, last week you might have remembered we spoke about eternity and Jah the Father and Joshua the Son, and we covered that before creation. And so we looked at before the beginning, where was the Most High before He created all things. We talked about eternity. We read this verse here, which I will read in front of us. Isaiah 57:15, for thus saith the high and lofty one that inhabiteth eternity, whose name is holy. I dwell in the high and holy place. With him also that is of a contrite and humble spirit, to revive the spirit of the humble and to revive the heart of the contrite ones. So if you remember clearly, we spoke about eternity, and if you haven't saw that lesson, please check it out, Eternity, the Father and the Son. And we went into a lot of the depths, how the Abba and the Ben, the Father and the Son, were in eternity before time, and that they created all things. And the Messiah brought in all things by the power of His Father, of which the Father gave Him all authority and glory. So again, we're looking here at the first day of creation. When we talk about creation, we got to also look at what is time, right? How would you define it with words? It's not the easiest thing to define for most people, but after a while, when you get an understanding, you can look it up in the dictionary and meditate upon it. We see that time is very unique. And here's one of the definitions that we've come up with, using a dictionary and an understanding also from the scriptures about time. It's the measurements of the cycles of existence within Jah's creation and eternity, comprising the duration of the past, present, and the future. So it's a measurement, and everything is measured in cycles, as you know, whether it's the 24-hour day cycle, the day cycle, the weekly cycle, monthly cycle, yearly cycles. All creatures and plants and everything have different cycles, life cycles, that way that lasts longer than others, and so on. But it's a measurement, and that's what time really is. It lets us know where we are in terms of whether the past, the present, or the future. It's not something really easy to define without actually using the word time. But when you look at this thing called the duration, it's just how far it goes, counting from the beginning. And you notice that I put in there, it's within Jah's creation and eternity. So the Most High's creation is within His eternity. So outside of creation is eternity. And these measurements that are within creation are of time are also included within eternity. Although in eternity, time is endless. Always remembering that the cycles of time were originated by Jah before the earth, sun, moon, or stars existed. It's something to know. So when I put up here the scripture here, it's just really letting us know that during the creation of all things, a lot of people think that the calendars begin with the sun, moon, and stars, but Jah was counting time before that. So we'll be looking at, creation, over the, next year, let's say, but, we're going to be focusing on day one. And as you can see, what was created on day one: heaven, time, light, the darkness, waters, earth material, the 4 elements. And we're going to get into that. And I think then, when we get into the trumpets, or even maybe next week, we'll look a little bit about the Sabbath, because when it comes to the Sabbath day, there's lots of controversies about the 7-day Sabbath, whether it's supposed to be kept at all. whether it's been changed over to Sunday, or whether it's a 24-hour period or a 12-hour period, whether it begins Friday evening to Saturday evening, or if it starts at Saturday morning to Saturday evening, or for some people, they might want to go exact sundown. And also then there's the confusion of lunar Sabbaths, where every seventh phase of the moon would be the day of rest that way. So you have to really understand the lunar cycles, and this doesn't make the 7-day Sabbath. That doesn't attach, the lunar Sabbaths are not attached to the 7-day weekly cycle. And it's so strange how we have a 7-day weekly cycle. And even the 7-day Sabbath is known in other languages as the word seven, or related to the word Sabbath, Sabtu, Shabbat, and all kind of words, no matter where you go in the country. But again, you have these issues. But we're going to be focusing on day one. Now, when we look at this first day of origination or creation, we always, of course, know that Jah created all things, and he's the originator of time, space, and matter. He's the origin of the elements of all creation, including his spiritual and physical laws and principles of nature. Now, we know that he's the most high of all things, of course, right? The Father. But, looking at these things, there's debates in the world of, Big Bang theory or evolution and that kind of thing. And when science they like to use these ideas of time, space, and matter, which are actual physical things that we deal with. So, I'm hoping to, with this lesson, to help people understand this first day of creation, so that when you hear all the other aspects of it, what it means and what it is and isn't, that you'll be able to know to discern. So that, just think about it. That very first verse in the beginning, God, Elohim, Jah, Yah, created the heaven and the earth. That's the foundation of our faith, right? Because we believe in a creator. And so for me, the very first verse is very, very powerful in that first day. And you'll be surprised that when we get that first verse misunderstood, and we get that first day misunderstood, we have a faulty foundation. And then we could actually, that's where false doctrines may come from. So it's very important. This first day even the first verse is our faith. In the beginning, do you believe that he made all things? And this is what it's all about. Just want to recap about this most high creator of ours. Revelation 10 says, and the angel which I saw stand upon the sea and upon the earth lifted up his hand to heaven and swear by him that liveth forever and ever, who created heaven and the things therein are, and the earth and the things that therein are, and the sea and the things which are therein, that there should be time no longer. So again, it's just a simple verse in Revelation, but again, letting us know that the Most High made all these things. That's why we worship and honor him. He's the creator, the originator of all things. Revelation 14, and I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel, the message, the good news, to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people. You notice it's being preached to everyone, saying with a loud voice, fear Elohim and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him that made heaven and earth and the sea and the fountains of waters. So we know that from our reading, creation began in Genesis 1:1, before verse 3, when Elohim said, let there be light. You're going to see there's a lot of confusion. And we know that, this dealing with nothing coming from nothing, that's what the Big Bang leads to, the solar system, which leads to the false idea of evolution and everything, right? And then you have Big Bang, evolution, solar system, and then all this, weird science, so to speak. Shabbat Shalom, everyone coming in there. One love. Big thanks. So when we look at the first day of origination or creation, it covers Genesis 1:1 to verse 5. And so again, it's the foundation of time, the cornerstone of the true almanac, the building blocks and elements of the universe, and it's the spiritual and physical and its spiritual and physical principles and laws. So in this first day of creation, basically what I'm saying here is that the Most High, on the first day of creation, outside of heaven, like he sets up his kingdom, his throne, everything that's in the physical realm is not like, it's not formed yet. He made the materials, what you're going to see, to make the rest of the universe throughout creation. And that's what it's about. A lot of people get confused, and we're going to look at that. So again, what happened on day one of creation? Well, I'm going to share with you that the Father originated his place of dwelling called heaven and the angels, along with time, space, light, energy, the four prime elements of the universe, the spiritual realm and its properties, and physical matter. In other words, Jah made the prime elements to make everything in the universe that exists. All things. And we're going to start to see that these things start from the Most High, and then as he's the main spirit, things start to divide. So we even have the Most High Father, and then boom, he has Son with him in eternity as well. And then from him and his Son, they began to make the creation. They make the family of angels, you'll see. And then, of course, from that, the rest of creation, everything is done in families, human beings, plants, animals. Jah made the solitary into families. And so this is a big mystery for a lot of, people out there. And there's a lot of psychedelic and weird theories about creation and what's real and what's not, if we live in a matrix and if this is all a hologram and all kind of foolishness. But believe it or not, this is real, but there's a greater reality, and the greater reality is in the spiritual realm. So this is real for us in terms of physical, but it's a reflection of what's going on in the spiritual realm that way. So again, taking a look, Jah makes his heavenly throne, angels, and we'll read it, the beginning of the time cycles, the earth material from which all things come from, the 24-hour day, which includes darkness and light. Of course, his spirit is present because he's eternal. You're going to have the darkness and dark waters. And of course, the four elements, earth, wind, and fire, and water, which again make up all things that exist in the physical realm. In the spiritual realm, that's a big spiritual substance is of something that I couldn't explain it to you. Outside of it, we know that the properties of it are invisible. It had the spiritual. There's for the Father, there's power. There's all kind of things going on. So we're not going to explain what spirit is. Obviously, it will be Bluetooth in our face, but we can definitely see how the spirit and the physical work within our universe. And I'll use the word universe at times that I kind of don't like to use the word universe because it's a scientific thing, but, encompassing all that exists. So when we're talking about heaven and earth, everything that exists, nothing existing outside of it, outside of eternity where the Father is and his Son, which they're in heaven now still, but everything that has been made. So no aliens and no other creatures or anything like that. The angels and so on and so forth, and human beings. So we're going to look at this Genesis 1:1, one verse at a time, and analyze it. And I mean, you may have analyzed it before, but again, you'd be surprised how erroneous this doctrine starts becoming. Give me a second here. Again, time began in Genesis 1:1. The beginning is when creation starts, right? It says Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, Jah created the heaven and the earth. So I'm going to be putting a lot of little things in here because these things matter. Make sure you understand how we're reading intently with an intention to understand this. Now, I don't claim to know all things, but we can get what is revealed in the scripture. And by the Most High, even sharing a little bit of his wisdom with us to understand these things in scripture. So, of course, beginning means time starts, right? Beginning. And then we have he created, and we see that heaven, not heavens, the heaven first, and the earth. All right? And that was second. So now, when you look at this, some people claim to say there's 7 Hebrew words or 10 in this verse. To me, it doesn't matter. Both are beautiful to me, right? If you look at this. So if you look at this before, if you're looking on your screen now, Genesis 1:1, your blue letter Bible or your Strong's Concordance, you notice like they have the Hebrew word. So you have one Hebrew word here for this phrase, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So you have kind of like 7 Hebrew phrases, but 10 English words. So one of the words for the beginning, as we're going to show you, I want to get into it, Reshith, is for the Hebrew, so-called Hebrew. And for God, that term is Elohim, right there, Strong's H430, or it can be El. Bara, which means it's H1254, means create. Et is the. So we got Shemay, heaven, et the Eretz, earth. So Reshith, Elohim, Bara, et Shemay, et Eretz. And I know they say they read from back to front and all of that, but this gives us an understanding, right? 7 or 10, doesn't matter. In the beginning, right? Genesis 1, verse 1, this word begin means beginning or begin, the point in time at which a thing begins. To bring into existence, these are the dictionary definitions. The source or first cause, the origin. To proceed to perform the first or earliest part of some action, to commence, to start to do something. The story begins with creation. To come into existence or being, to arise, to originate. And this is why at times we also use the word originator for creator, because to create, you have a creator. To originate, you have an originator. To originate, be the originator of. And again, civic leaders, and there's a definition. So I know you know these words, but this is how we have to break it down sometimes, because people want to talk about like there's like the only thing before the beginning was eternity, right? But it starts to get confusing when you get into who was there and who wasn't. But it just simply means to begin, to the origin of a thing. When we look it up in this word beginning, as we said before, Reshith, first, beginning, the best, the chief, right? The choicest part. A beginner is one who begins or originates, a founder. The origin means the beginning of the existence of anything. It is a specific cause or the point of time or space when something comes into existence. So the word begin is a very powerful word when it's used in context, right? We know that the end of a thing is better than the beginning, but without the beginning, nothing gets done. So this is very important that we understand the beginning is the origin and it's the beginning of time. So as soon as Jah started making the heaven, time moved right off the bat. And as he started creating, that's existence of time. We also have in the beginning, Jah created. Bara, this is a word sometimes that, messes up some people. To create, shape or form. To shape or fashion, to create. Always with Elohim as the subject. Of heaven and of earth. Of an individual man. Of new conditions and circumstances. Of transformations. To be created. Of heaven and earth. Of birth. Of something new. Again, bara. To create. And so you might say, well, why is this guy breaking these things down? When you do get into understanding and you want to know about the origin of time, and then you can read on your own, but then you might want to do what I do at times, is go onto YouTube and see what other people have to say about creation and how things began. And you start to see there's a lot of different points of views, and using Hebrew translations for some seems to be a main thing, although it's good to have Hebrew translations, but it really doesn't have a play on what's actually happening, but I think it gives us a fuller understanding. And so some people make a big deal about something being created, bara, as something being made. I think the word is, I forgot what the word is. I don't know if it was ahar or something, but made, right? And so they'll say, because it says he didn't make the earth, he created it. And then in other aspects of creation, it says, and he made two great lights. So they're going to say, well, that's the difference between create and made. And that becomes a big deal. So when you look at the scriptures and in terms of Genesis chapter 1, just when you read it, notice the standouts of create and made. And I didn't put it on this lesson today, even though I have the chart somewhere. I just didn't want to get a big deal into it, but You might find some people who are going to make a big deal to try to say creation doesn't go the way we're teaching today. So again, we have these 10 English words. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth, right? We see two prime elements, heaven and earth, in terms of elements, right? So these two different things. You can look at it simply as he makes the spiritual, right? And the physical. Same thing. Anything that's heavenly is of the spirit. Anything that is of the physical is of the earth. And then you'll see also dealing with these prime elements, heaven also represents masculinity, right? Because the Father, well, God's a spirit, but he calls himself a father, which is a masculine form. He brought forth his firstborn son, and the angels as well, when they appear on earth, they're as men. They don't appear as little babies and with wings, and even with some female angels. No, at least not righteous angels. I don't know what the wicked angels do and how they might want to, confuse things. But I just want to say the spiritual, the heavenly, all represents masculine. Earthly represents physical, and also the feminine aspect. So think about it. We are like, as people, we are the Most High's wife. Why? Because we're earthlings and he's the father. And there's other little things to get involved with that as well. So we got the spiritual and the physical. Again, everything in this universe is made up of Jah's unique spiritual substance and physical material. Nothing outside of those two materials. Can't make anything from it. It comes from the Most High. And these two substances that Jah originated are the main sources of all things. The heavenly is first, then the physical. Just have to emphasize that because it sets the pattern and the cycles of all existence. So we're looking at the heavenly, the spiritual, the masculine, as I told you before, right? In the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth. So again, the heaven is also represented as the spiritual. The heaven that Jah first made was his heavenly throne and his place of dwelling. The heavenly or the spiritual also represents the masculine, as I said. And here's a couple of verses. Oh, sorry, not yet. Jah acknowledges himself as father or Abba, which is masculine. Joshua is the son or Ben of Jah and is also the masculine. And like I said, the heavenly angels, both good and evil, are given masculine names, and they even appear to humans as men. We have the earthly, the physical, the feminine, as I spoke about. So again, the earthly is represented by the physical. The earth material that Jah made was second, right? As opposed to the spiritual first. It initially had no form and was submerged in dark waters. The earthly or the physical also represents the feminine. And here's a few verses here. Jah acknowledges the earth as a feminine or female. Genesis 4. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. So we see symbolically, again, the earth here is known as given a feminine pronoun, I guess is what it's called. Numbers 16:30. But if Jah make a new thing and the earth open up her mouth, Psalm 67:6. Then shall the earth yield her increase, and Jah, even our own King, shall bless us. So I'm sure you get the idea now. And everything that exists, we know, comes from Jah. So we have Jah, the eternal Holy Spirit, the Father or Abba of Joshua the Messiah. Then, of course, as we spoke about last week, we have Joshua, Jah's immortal son. He's the co-originator of the universe. He made the heavenly realm, the spiritual first. The earthly realm, the physical second. Keeping this in mind. This is like the order, the Father, the Son, and then they make creation. The spiritual angels and the physical humans. Again, spiritual masculine, physical feminine, as you can see here, the heavenly realm, angels, humans, as you see on your screen. So again, let's look at this. In the beginning, time, God, Elohim, Jah, was the source, created energy, created means energy, the heaven, the space, and the earth, matter. So all these things, when you talk about science and talk to the scientists, they'll bring this up. You have to have time, space, and matter, and it kind of makes a little bit of sense, because if you need space to make creation, and they have to come in at the same time, because if you have no space, right, then you can't create something in it, and then you have to have time in order to know when to create it or put it in at some time. So there's all these things have to go hand in hand perfectly, and I want to show you how they do. Remember, it comes from Jah comes time, space, and matter, which is all a part of our creation anywhere in this universe. So again, everything that the Most High created in Genesis 1 has everything to provide for the existence of both the physical and both the spiritual and the physical. So when it comes to time, you know how it goes. It's like this three factor here, this factor of threes here. It's you have your past, you have your present, and your future. That covers all aspects of time. Then you have the space, right, to put something there. So you have the height of it, you have the width of it, the length or the depth of it that way. The breadth is always another word. You need these things. You have to have space to put the earth and the heaven, right? And then you have to have matter to make things. So with matter, we know that matter, as we know in the physical world where we are in matter, is like, we can just use water as an example, a solid, a liquid, or a gas. It turns to ice, it's water, and then it evaporates, right? And so a lot of these elements of matter, space, and time are all here in creation in that very first verse of Genesis chapter 1:1. So you see how much is in there. Just in those first 10 words cover everything and all that is needed to make the rest of the universe, all in that very one verse. Praise Jah. So again, we have in the beginning, which is the origin of time. We have God, Elohim, Jah, which is the originator. He's the creator. He's the source, because this is what you need. You need power. You need energy, right? And this is what, from the creation, you get your energy, originated power, all the things to make something. We have the heavens, space, spiritual. And I put heavens here because we have heavens. There's three heavens, as we're going to talk about, and they're all about space. But nonetheless, the heaven is singular first, and the earth, again, physical matter. We have these things in the very first verse. Very powerful. Now, Genesis 1:1 with a pause, a really, really long pause. And so I have to talk about this gap theory. And that means in Genesis 1:1, at the end of that, in the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth, period. And then in the next verse, it goes on to say, and the earth was without form. However, in between Genesis 1:1 and Genesis 1:2, although it's a period there, they say that's a period of time. So between Genesis 1:1 and verse 2, there's a claim of millions. When I mean millions, this is what their claim is, millions of years of an existence that was happening in there. Because they teach that in the beginning, Jah created the heaven and the earth. They're saying that the heaven and the earth were populated and everything, and the earth was full. It was in its form, whether you believe in a plane or a planet, earth. And there was the devil and his angels, and they were doing all kind of stuff. And then Jah had to remake things, and it makes no sense. But this is what they teach, and we're going to look at it, investigate it a bit more closely. Shabbat Shalom to all who are in the room. Remember I told you about the creation, created versus made? So this is where this idea of created versus made comes into, where people like want to make a difference. So this recreation theory or the gap theory uses definitions of the words created and made. So this is what they're going to try to say, oh, he created the heaven and the earth, but then for the latter part, he made everything else and made all these things. But remember what I said, he created all the elements from the physical and the spiritual. From there, if you have those materials, then he could create things from it or make things from that substance. And I think that's where that simple misunderstanding comes in. Because if you have something made already, if you make something, it could come from things that are created. And you can create something that's from something that's made. So it really going back and forth is silly in order to try to prove a point. But this is what I had to do. I went in verse 1, I found created. Verse 7 says made. Verse 16 says made 2 times. He made the sun, moon, and stars. It says he created the fish, but then it says he made the animals. Then it says he created man, but then he says he made everything. And then in chapter 2, verse 2, after everything was made, created 2 and 3, created and made. Verses 2 and 4, chapter 2, verse 4, created and made. So we have create 5 times, made 9 times, equaling 14. Create, bada, remember I showed this already, to create and do all these things. Then you have the word made, asa, right? To fashion, to accomplish, to make, to do work, produce, to act, to produce, and all of these type of things here. I know for us listening, like, man, why do we have to be bringing this up? Well, I'm telling you, big minds out there and big deceptive minds as well are teaching these things, because most doctrine that, that groups have, they should be something about creation, right? And if they're not, then they haven't really investigated fully to, get to that. And that's important. These things are salvation issues. You can't just say, oh, I believe in the creator, and, you don't even know who you're believing in, who made it. You just believe in a God, so to speak. And that kind of, most people might have that type of attitude, but knowing who he is and, understanding, that's a different thing. And so this is why these things have to come up, because there are false doctrines against using this idea of if something is made, it's not created. And if it's created, it's not made. And it's really silly, right? It means the same thing in a different fashion, but they are the same. So in the beginning, we covered that verse there. And then right here, they'll say there's the gap theory or recreation theory. And so then when we go to verse 2, and we'll look at it. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the spirit of Elohim moved upon the face of the waters. So right from that, they're going to say, well, the earth was without form. So they come into an idea in their minds that, well, it must have been formed in verse 1. It must have been formed, and then something caused it to be without form and void, and something caused darkness to be on the face of the deep. And there was something catastrophic that happened in between verses 1 and 2. And I mean, this is a simple, clean read of the 5 verses in there. It just puts everything into play, but this is what happens. An interjection comes right there, and they're going to say, no. The devil made the earth without form. This is when there was dinosaurs and everything. We never heard nothing about the devil being made or the angels, and they weren't made at this time yet either. They're made in day 1, but they weren't made yet. It was the heaven and the earth, right? The earth was without form. It had no shape. There's no shape of no earth. There was nothing there. It was material, you understand? And it was submerged, when you look at it, in the waters. Darkness was there. We don't hear the Father say, let there be water. So this earth material is also involved with waters. And so I'm trying to say all of these things, it's physical stuff. So when he made the earth, that's when the waters were a part of all these things. And it says darkness was a part of, upon the face of the deep. Darkness is a part of the spiritual realm as well, just like how light is. If you remember us talking about darkness, that's where the Most High dwells, and he uses it to hide himself. It's preeminent. You can see it right here. It's in the beginning, verse 2. It's right there, right before light. So these are the truths about creation that have to be put into play. But there's no recreation, and I'm going to also get into more of what they talk about. So again, they're going to have it just like this, that there was, again, a gap of billions of years. Some say millions and others say billions. I mean, where does that come from? I don't even know. Like, I'm trying to figure out where it comes from, right? But they're trying to kind of splice science with the creation. See, the earth is just over, never mind the earth, the universe is just over 6,000 years old. The sun, moon, and stars, the mountains, the trees, human beings, we were all made in the first week. So outside of, being days older, and the sun, moon, and stars might be days older, but we're all, human beings were all over 6,000 years old, right? 6,221 years for that matter, since the beginning of time. Not millions of years that way, but that's another topic for another time. So they call this the ruin and recreation theory, or also known as the gap. There was a gap. This is what they say. In the beginning, Elohim made the heaven and the earth created millions of years ago. And all of these people believe in the globe when they deal with it. So Satan and his angels, and there was a pre-Adamic race along with dinosaurs. I forgot to add that part. It's been a while kind I did this lesson, but yeah, people have that. There's people born before Adam and Eve, and I mean Israelite groups teach that. Yeah, they all come with some person called Lilith as another wife for Adam. Understand all these things come, you know, people just say, "Oh, you're being too ticky-tacky about doctrine." As long as we know who we are and we're loving and we're trying to do this, man, I'm telling you, man, it's these doctrines that are of the devil that are dividing us. And even though you might say, "Well, I'm a part of the division because I'm teaching something against," this is how it has to go. There's going to be a controversy in the scriptures. The Most High says there's a controversy with truth and error, and we must stand up. But I can't believe that, like something so simple. All people come from Adam and Eve. Sin comes through Adam, from the devil through Adam. Scriptures clarify that all nations are divided from Adam. It says even that Eve is the mother of all living. Those are scriptural things. But again, I'm telling you, the disobedience and the blindness for our people in particular is very great. And I think it's because we haven't repented first. It's like we come into the truth without true repentance, counting the cost, looking at what we have to do and understanding the Messiah and salvation. And this is about eternal life. Because, me speaking with a lot of different groups, the idea of salvation and eternal life are two different things. I didn't even know that. I just found this out recently. Some people thinking salvation is only dealing with Israel being saved and put in their in the land of Canaan and being regrouped and coming into the kingdom. And that's what people call salvation. And I guess it's a topic, but for me, I teach eternal life. I mean, I know we got to come together, but the Messiah is going to be doing all of that. We can't, jump ahead of him and what he's going to do. So to me, salvation represents eternal life, coming back from the dead in the resurrection. If it's just about building back up old Israel so we can just be the top, the tail, the head instead of the tail again, well, that has an order to it and a dispensation. There's something that has to be brought in an orderly fashion. It doesn't just happen that way. So I don't understand how salvation and eternal life can get mixed up with many Israelite groups, and it's a different thing. You'd be surprised how it's different. I can't even believe it, man. Honestly, it's amazing. Some things are so simple. Let's continue. Genesis 1:2, and the earth was without form. So Satan and his angels rebel and cause havoc on the earth. Judgment of evil angels. There's a judgment of evil angels and the earth making it void. The dinosaurs were destroyed. So we have millions of years of creation and evil, then destruction and judgment. Think about that, right? Does it make sense? There was a judgment again before the flood. I'm not saying that man them died in the flood, and if there was dinosaurs or large water creatures or reptiles or anything like that, they died in something that we don't even see and read. They don't say nothing about this. This is how I'm telling you that people will read into things and put their own theories on something so simple. And believe it or not, I've been accused of doing this myself. Like, people accuse me of it. So this is how the battle goes. Like, we can't get around it. And then it says, and then Jah begins to recreate or restore the earth around 6,000 years ago in 6 days. Life from Adam comes, flood judgment with Noah and the fiery judgment awaiting angels and man. And then they say the word replenish means refill. And so they get into all of that. But wow, this is all wrong. This never happened at all. None of this happened. It's amazing. You see, people think replenish, means refill because you see on it, it says replenish. And there was a word plenish means to fill. But when you again go to the Hebrew, simply, the word replenish really means to fill. And if you wanted to use the word replete, that means to fill as well. Just because you have the word re all the time doesn't mean to do again. That's just the thing. These are just normal words. But I want to show you on the screen what's going on. You might have came across this yourself. Genesis 1:28. And Elohim blessed them, and Jah said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and here it is, and replenish. They say it means refill the earth, but I'm just telling you it means fill. We're going to be able to see it soon. And subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the fowl, over everything that moves. And then Genesis 9:1, it says, and Jah blessed Noah and his sons and said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth. So when we see these things two together, these are actually the words. We know that when it was with Noah, this word replenish would say to refill, but even in the translation, it just means fill. But this word replenish has caused a part of this gap theory, because if Adam and Eve were called to refill the earth. That means it was full before with other human beings, just like how it was when in the times before the flood. But let's look along. You know me, I like to look at things a little bit closer than that. This is saying 128 from the Geneva Bible. Simple. Bring forth fruit and multiply and fill the earth. Up here it says replenish. And then when it comes down to Noah and his sons, it says replenish the earth, which would probably mean better, refill there. So you can see there's something wrong there. I hope you don't believe that there were people before Adam and Eve. Use the scriptures to correct, All right, so Genesis 1:28, using our Strong's Concordance, you see it up here, replenish, H4390, fill. This is it. Fill. To be full, fullness, to be full, consecrate, fill the land, to be filled, to accomplish. The thing is, nothing about refill. Again, fill the earth from, that's what the word should be. See, again, people don't like when we want to correct the Bible and say that this word shouldn't be in there, but come on. We have to recognize that there's quite a bit of, see, we're not talking about the inerrancy of the Bible. The inerrancy of the Bible is that it has salvation. There's no other book, and dealing with King James, but it doesn't mean that the devil hasn't put his hand in there and translators. We should all know that by now. And I understand that, it becomes very crucial for people when you say, oh, who gives you the authority to change this and that word? We're just bringing things to fuller understanding, and, may the Most High, have mercy. But again, there's so much other verses that show that there was no other people before Adam and Eve, and they didn't have to refill the earth on day 6. So this is something, I guess, again, you're going to have to live with, even if you yourself try to show other people. And I mean, they're just going to say, that we're being deceptive. But the Messiah was called the devil, right? So again, all of this stuff here, none of it happened. The ordination of all things occurred with 7 consecutive uninterrupted 24 days. Exodus 20 tells us right there, for in 6 days Jah made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that in them is, and rested the 7th day. Therefore Jah blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. So there's even a problem with the creation week. Some people, because it says in the scriptures, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day unto the Most High. So creation, each day of creation isn't 24-hour days long. They're 1,000-year periods long, because, how could he do it? And he would need more time to do all this and that. Silly. If he wanted to do it in 6 seconds, 7 seconds, we know it can happen. But Exodus 20 is very clear. In 6 days, he made heaven and earth and all that, and he rested, and then he wants us, and he hallowed it. So how could there be 6,000 years? So 1,000 years, 1,000 years of 1,000 years of making the heaven and the earth, then another 1,000 years of making the firmament heaven to separate the waters, and then another 1,000 years to make bring the earth together, and then another 1,000 years to make the sun, moon, and stars, and then another 1,000 years to make the creatures come from the waters, and another 1,000 years to make the animals and Adam and Eve. Look at all of that time period, man. I mean, doesn't make no sense anyways to your mind if you know it doesn't jive. The evening and the morning were the first day. And then finally, when it comes to a day's like 1,000 years, and I don't know if we're going to get to it today, but that's talking about the long plan of time and the end of the world, not the beginning. But nonetheless, let's look at something here. I want to squash this. So they're saying day 1 is a really long day. 24 hours, is it 24 hours? And then the millions of years. And then what happened later? Is that 24 hour, 1,000? Like, nothing jives. This is either 1,000 years or 24-hour days or millions and billions. But again, it's uninterrupted 24-hour days. The evening and the morning with the first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Very simple. So from day 1 to day 5, everything was declared by Jah to be good. On the 6th day, he declared everything to be very good. So this is what I'm saying here. Listen to it. These words are very important to understand this. There was no evil during creation at all. The 7th day was declared blessed, sanctified, and holy. And it wasn't at least until sometime after the Sabbath, and probably many years later, or months or days, weeks, that Lucifer became evil. So just think about it, right? And I'm going to show you the verse for it, but after Jah makes everything, day one, it says he looked at everything he made and was very good. So if it was Satan and the devil and everything, that's a lie. Like, just look at this kind of, there's other people who know this. And of course, they're using Gentiles. Oh, Adam, this is such a perfect world. Yes, it's very good. Just like Elohim said. He said it was good. But no, there's millions of years of pain, death, suffering, the angels, and doing all kind of bad things with some pre-Adamic human race. Silly, right? See, I say silly, but it's evil. There's doctrines that are evil, and people who are deceived are falling to evil doctrines, and then I think these evil doctrines lead to disobedience. That's how I see it still, but again, we just have to move through and make Jah have mercy on all of us. So again, the weekly cycle is the foundation of Jah's almanac. We know that there's an evening, night, and a light for 6-7 days, right? We know that Genesis 1:31, it says, and Jah Elohim saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. Everything. Even Lucifer, who was made on the first day, was made good. He didn't even turn bad until after creation. Just let the scriptures have this, overall standard for you in this area. And the evening and the morning were the 6th day. So I'm quoting right from scripture here, Genesis 1:31. So the darkness he made was also very good, and so was Lucifer. Because that's another thing people say, oh, that darkness that was upon the face of the deep, that represented the evil that was going on in the world and Satan and everything. We talked about darkness and how it is a good thing to the Most High. You have to use it into context. And then it says, on the 7th day, Jah ended his work which he had made and rested on the 7th day from all his work which he had made, right? So simple. Everything was good. It was holy. Nothing was evil. The gap theory is a devilish theory to try to make something, just to take away from the truth, to be honest. Let's go to verse 2. Again, I said it last week, but remember, the cycles of time began with the preeminence of the darkness first. The cycles of creation began with Elohim starting with the preeminence of silence and darkness. People say that when the Most High said that there be light, that's when he began creating. But this is a foundational error. And they got it right from verse 3. They say, and Elohim said, let there be light, and there was light. So now, again, see, this is a bothersome thing, right? When I say bothersome, it's bothersome that people are able to deceive people with these simple things. It says, in the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth. And it says, Elohim said, let there be light in verse 3. But it says he created things in verse 1. How could this be the beginning of creation? And it's not. There's even scriptures to verify that he was working in darkness, right? So, I mean, I'm just skipping past those couple of verses that you can see on your screen. But that's what you'd have to do. You have to say, well, verse 1 doesn't exist. The waters are not there. Darkness is not there. And whatever it is without form, but he began creating when he said, let there be light. This is a problem. And see, when most people teach this, not most, but there's a certain set of people that will teach this. And the set of people are people who believe in a 12-hour day, because they want to say that's when the day begins, because, isn't there 12 hours in the day? And because of the he called the darkness night and the light day and the evening and morning of the first day and all of that, it's confusing, but it shouldn't be at all. Just go in order, a clean read of the scripture. Second Ezra reads, chapter 6. And I said, O Lord, thou spakest from the beginning of the creation, even the first day, and said, let the heaven and the earth be made, and thy word was made perfect. And then was the spirit, and darkness and silence were on every side. The sound of man's voice was not yet formed. So I spoke about this last week, but no Big Bang, right? That's the exact opposite. And the Big Bang is at the end. So in the beginning was darkness and silence when Jah did his things. See the difference? Complete difference. right? Most of the doctrines that we teach, I'm telling you, these times in the year 2021, I know most people are like, what are you guys talking about? Almost everything, whether we talk about a virgin birth in a simple way, talk about how fringes should be, if you're not supposed to wear them, and if you are, how they're supposed to be, the calendar, man, I can go on, but that's just how it is. The Most High is opening up our eyes right now. This is a time of revival, and all revivals start with, the holy days and the feast days, right? The first revival in the New Testament on the day of Pentecost, the day of first fruits, when they got the Holy Spirit. When you look in the scriptures, the revival of Josiah, the revival of King Solomon building the temple, all the revivals come around festival keeping. And, this has to be an understood thing in a certain way. But again, I don't want to drift too far. So in the beginning, Elohim created the heaven and the earth. Now the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Now when it says the face of the deep, and it says, and the spirit of Elohim moved upon the face of the waters, right? Face means surface, right? The deep is the waters, right? The waters are also called the deep, right? The darkness. So if there's darkness, that means the waters are dark too. Even if you want to say, well, they're translucent. Well, when you look into the water at nighttime, whatever, it's just dark. You can't see anything. You scoop up water, you can't see anything. So it's moved upon the face of the dark waters. But look what the Most High says here. And this in 2nd Ezra, right? It's the same thing we said before, what I quoted from before, that last verse, but here's more to it. And just thou spakest from the beginning of the creation, even the first day, and said, thou, let the heaven and the earth be made, and thy word was made a perfect work. And darkness was upon, and silence was upon. Darkness and silence were on every side. The sound of man's voice was not yet formed. Don't worry, I'm going to get to where I want to get to. So first of all, let's look at this word, darkness. It's koshek, darkness, obscurity, darkness, secret place, right? Simply what it means, koshek. Isaiah 45:7 lets us know that the Most High says, I form the light and create darkness. I create koshek. That's what that word is. Darkness is created. Now here we go. And the earth was without form and void, and darkness upon the face of the deep, right? So we have the surface of the waters, the dark waters, the deep darkness of waters, and the unformed earth material scattered throughout and submerged in the dark waters, right? That's how it goes. So think about it. The Most High Spirit is above, where it says the surface. And what's above the surface? The heaven, right? And in the water, it says that the earth was void in form and there was only water. So the earth was within the waters, because there's another scripture that says that the earth comes forth out of water, yet standing in waters. So you have to understand those things as well, and the concept of how the earth is. So again, we have the cornerstones of creation, the heaven and the earth. I'm just going over it quickly, the spiritual and the physical. Then we have the earth material as well, darkness, we have spirit, and we have waters. So we have earth, spirit, water, and darkness. But look at this verse 2. The earth had no form and void. Darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of Jah moved upon the face of the waters. So again, what is he doing moving upon the face of the waters, right? Obviously, Jah's not idle. He's not moving. He's not letting us know that the wind was just blowing. He's doing movements. He's making his heaven. Remember I said, it says the heaven and the earth. He's setting up his heavenly throne. So in heaven, the highest heaven where the Messiah is now, that was the first thing ever made and furnished perfectly in darkness until Jah said, let there be light. That's what he was doing, moving upon the face of the waters, making his heaven. Very simple. So there was no, whether how you want to see the earth, again, I'm not going to get into how the earth is or anything like that, but there's many different things and there's some scriptural understandings of things. I'm not a globe guy either, but there's different things we can talk about another time. I do know that there's a lot spoken of against the globe in a certain way. And of course, there's a lot against the idea of a flat earth. It sounds silly too. But there's, good things in the scriptures, when you get into it, and even things in nature. So I know that people say that water can't, like, it is level, and I do agree it is leveled. And remember, I don't believe in a globe earth, but then you have stuff like bubbles, and bubbles can be big and they're round and they keep their form, you know what I mean? And so it's something, that's within bubbles too that way. But I'm not trying to say that earth is a sphere, nor am I saying it's like the one up the left with, but I do believe that the earth, water is level and the earth is sticking out of water and it's not a ball. But again, I don't want to get too deep into that now. Okay, so again, what do we have here? Oh, sorry. So we have these waters. Again, he's moving upon the face of the waters, doing his thing. The earth is still submerged in those waters. It's underneath. Remember, it's called the deep, right? Remember, he bowed the heavens also and came down, and darkness was under his feet. He rode a cherub and did fly. He did fly upon the wings of the wind. He made darkness his secret place. His pavilion round about him were dark waters and thick clouds of the skies. Remember what's going on. You're talking about the beginning. Again, clouds and darkness are round about him. Righteousness and judgment are the habitation of his throne. And giving you an idea of thinking about the creation. See, darkness was first, and then light came from darkness, right? We know that already. 2 Corinthians confirms it. For Elohim, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, let me say it again. For Jah, who commanded the light to shine out of darkness, has shined in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of Elohim in the face of Yahweh Shai, the Messiah. So obviously, the Most High said, let there be light, and light came from darkness. So this verse here, again, let you know, darkness was first, and light came from it. Check this out. 2nd Ezra. Remember we said about the darkness? Now here's verse 40 is going to be nice, but I'll read from verse 39. And that was the spirit and darkness and silence were on every side. The sound of man's voice was not yet formed. 40. Then commandest thou a fair light to come forth of thy treasures, that thy work might appear. Now that's a beautiful, powerful verse. It says, let his light came forth so that his work might appear. What work? The work that he was doing in darkness when he was moving upon the face of the waters. You see what I'm saying? He's creating. Don't let people tell you that Jah began creation with let there be light. It's a disrespect to the scripture. You understand? It doesn't make no sense. There's clearly verses right there in front of verse 3 before light was made. And this here confirms it. And like I say, it might be nothing for people, but many groups teach this. And then it leads to other things. Let's go to verse 3. Again, we cover these. And Elohim said, let there be light. And there was light. All right. So what was that light? What was it? Well, one thing we know is that it wasn't the sun. The sun, moon, and stars aren't made until the fourth day of creation. Isn't that something too, going back to the gap theory? It didn't say that there was sun, moon, and stars were made. And this is what they say about those who believe in the gap theory and that whole foolishness I told you about. They say that in the beginning, in Genesis 1:1, he made the sun, moon, and stars. And because of all of the wickedness and everything, Jah darkened it. And it was darkened by all this evil, and Jah darkened it as well and turned off the lights. It's just that now in creation on day 4, he just turned them back on, even though it says he made and created them. But they're going to say he just turned on the lights, that they were dimmed because of what the devil did and everything. Again, pure folly. Again, sun, moon, and stars are not made to day 4. But what is this light? Well, it says, and Elohim said, let there be light, and there was light. This word light is or from the Hebrew. Even if you heard the word aura, as opposed to people, the lights around you when people are speaking psychedelic new age religions, right? But or means light or light of the day, light of heavenly luminaries, daybreak, dawn, morning light, daylight, light of a lamp, light of life, light of prosperity, light of instruction, light of faith. And this is what they say. Remember, I'm just quoting from the Strongs. It says, Jehovah as Israel's light, or Jah as Israel's light. Now, that's to me what that light is right from the beginning. And I'll try to bring a couple of verses. But we know it couldn't have been the sun, moon, and stars. So where would the only source of light come from? The Most High himself, right? That's all it is. James 1:17 says this about Jah. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above and cometh down from the Father of what? Lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. That's right. He's a light. He's a consuming fire. He's the Father of lights. It's a very heavy title, right? Very heavy title. This is why Jah doesn't want you to worship any of those lights. You worship him, the true light, right? And the other lights are the sun, moon, and stars if you have, your lunar calendar people, right? Isaiah 60 says, the sun shall be no more thy light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light unto thee, but Jah shall be unto thee an everlasting light, and thy maker thy glory, or thy Elohim thy glory. So again, Jah is a light, an everlasting light. John 1:7, the same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light, John the Baptist, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. Again, what was that light? Hebrews 12:29, for our Elohim is a consuming fire. Matthew 17:2, about the Messiah, and was transfigured before them, and his face did shine as the sun, and his raiment was white as the light. Praise Jah. Acts 26, at midday, O king, I saw in the way a light from heaven, above the brightness of the sun, shining round about me and them which journeyed with me. We know again that that is the Messiah. Revelation 21, and the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon to shine in it, for the glory of Jah did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. Praise his holy name. Revelation 22:5, last chapter. And there shall be no night there, and they need no candle, neither light of the sun, for Jah Almighty giveth them light, and they shall reign forever and ever. So hopefully those verses prove that, it's not the sun that was there on day one. I mean, just reading, I think it's right here, day 4, right? Again, just looking, this is the progression of creation. Again, we have to kind of let it know again, man. Our Elohim is a consuming fire. A consuming fire. He's not no fluffy being just chilling on clouds. Remember this fact. John 8, then spake Joshua again unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that follows me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. So let's look at now the creation of the elements and the angels. We try to finish this off quickly here. So we covered Genesis 1:1, the prime elements, spiritual and physical. We looked at, chapter 2, verse 2, the earth, the spirit, and the water, right? And then Jah said, let there be light, and there was light. Illumination, fire, life energy, and the angels are alive. So this is what I'm saying. What happened when Jah said, let there be light? Well, it says the place was illuminated. But also when he said, let there be light, that's when the angels came alive. And you might say, well, why would you say that? Well, let's get into it. So we know the 4 elements are what make up all things, right? I mean, I don't want to try to sound again scientific, but these are kind of common things that the ancients even knew, that you could even put it to the test. We have earth material there, you grab it, the trees and the land, everything comes from it. We have the waters, right, that is separate. We have fire, and earth and all these things, and then we have the wind and the spirit. So these things all combine and work together on our earth, that make up almost everything again. So we have physical, spiritual, and then those two get divided into the elements, and then those elements get divided into something else, and it spreads out from there on. So John, Joshua are the originators. The heavenly, spiritual, the earth and the physical is what they made first. Then they both, the heavenly and the spiritual and the earth and the physical, they start to mix. And think about this mixture. Water is likened to the Holy Spirit as well, right? As you know, very powerful. And fire, of course, is likened unto Jah as well. So water and fire are they're like spiritual elements that are combined with physical, right? But they're highly spiritual. And then we know that the earth and the wind, those have a combination as well. And wind is highly spiritual, again, dealing with words, the spirit, and so on and so forth. And of course, the earth material dealing with us human beings that way, and all things that we call matter. These are the elements. The morning stars, aka the angels of light. Job 38, verse 4. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare if thou hast understanding. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Notice that means the earths are fastened, doesn't move. Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of El shouted for joy. So the angels are also called morning stars. And you're going to see a little bit about the angels, why I come to an understanding by the scriptures that this is when the Father made the angels alive. When he said, let there be light, that's when they came alive. Isaiah 14:12. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? Hebrews 1, here it is. And of the angels he saith, who maketh his angels spirits and his ministers a flame of fire. Well, there could be no flames of fire or anything like that until Jah said, let there be light. And when Jah said, let there be light, that was the end of the darkness period. That was the end of the evening. And now the morning has begun. So when Jah said, let there be light, that's what the light came forth out of his mouth. That was the morning. And when that happened, the angels came alive. That's why they're called the morning stars. Praise Jah. So we got 1 and 2. Verse 4 now. And Elohim saw the light, that it was good, and Elohim divided the light from the darkness. And Elohim called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. So when it comes, we're not going to get into it today, but it comes confusing for people because it says he called the light day, and then the evening and the morning were the first day. But when you get into it, it's just like how English has the word day, can mean a long period of time, can mean the daylight period of time, can mean a 24-hour period. Context is everything, right? But they're going to mess up this one too about the evening and the morning, and they're going to say that light came first because that's when he said, that's when creation started for them. But again, we've been through that. See, there's 7 vital words regarding time that are used on the first 24-hour day of origination. And I'm bringing this forth because, I believe in 24-hour days. An evening and a morning, or a night period and a light period make a 24-hour day. Therefore, establishing that a 7-day Sabbath should be a 24-hour day as well, because it's 1 to 7, right? And some people, like I said, keep a 12-hour Sabbath, which I feel should be 24 hours, and they feel otherwise. But look at that first day of creation, and you look with me to see if you see any elements of a 24-hour period. Well, we have the beginning, which is dealing with time, as we spoke about. And then on one half, we have, remember, the darkness was on the face of the deep. He called the darkness night. And then we have the evening and the morning were the first day. And then you have on the other aspect, the other spectrum, we have light, opposite of darkness. We have day, opposite of night. And we have morning, opposite of evening. So very clearly, we can see that a 24-hour day was there. It started with the darkness first, then the light period, evening and the morning. I know it seems simple, but this simplicity gets confused. And this is why we're doing the lesson, right? It gets very much confused because this is the pattern for every other day. So day 2 is going to be patterned off for day 1 in terms of its time frames, the evening and the morning. You know about that. But because when it talks about the Sabbath, it says, and when the 7th day came, Jah ended his work and rested, but it doesn't say the evening and the morning were the 7th day. So they're like, what? Even though it said it 6 times, right? But nonetheless, again, that's not enough. So they want to see the evening and the morning with the 7th day, and then, then they'll keep a 24-hour Sabbath. But because that doesn't say that, but again, common sense, So the first day has everything required for a 24-hour day. Again, it says, and the evening and the morning were the first day. We have darkness and light. We have night and day. We have evening and morning. So as you can see here, there's the evening when Jah began things. In the beginning, Jah created the heaven and the earth. Through this whole dark period, as you can see, his spirit was hovering. He was making the heaven and everything, right? And all of that. No stars and everything. I'm just using this as a diagram, obviously. And then he said, let there be light, right? Sorry. Let there be light. And the morning began for 12 hours. So we have 12 hours of evening and then 12 hours of morning, giving you the concept of a 24-hour day, middle night and middle day. So there's not 12-hour days only, and it's not the morning came first and then the evening. That's 24-hour days. No, it's the evening first and the morning or light second. Simple. So here's the orderly pattern, what we just covered. The heavenly, the spiritual was first. Then the earthly was second, the physical. The masculine is first, then came the feminine. The darkness was first, then the light second. The evening came first, then the morning was second. The first empires of the earth, of this whole earth, all those empires up until Alexander the Great, were all Negro, black, sheep empires. Now the end times, it's the Gentile goat empires, the light. So it came to the dark first, then into the light, so to speak. I'm not saying that they're light, but you know what I mean, the light-skinned stuff, the white thing. Salvation came through the sheep family of nations first, then to the goat family of nations by the Savior, Joshua the Messiah. So what I'm saying is that in the Old Testament, all the nations that were around about Israel were black nations and empires that were oppressing them and, hurting them, no matter who it is. They're either Hamites or Shemites. It's in the Alexander times where the Japhites or the so-called Gentiles, where they start taking over. But Egypt and all those other nations, even if they weren't Israel, they had exposure to Israel first. And so they even had the blackness, the truth of the black Israelites and the truth of the Messiah went to even those Egyptians first before it actually came over to the Japhites that way. Let me just take a look here. I think I'm finishing off. I just want to make sure this is my last slide to kind of conclude what I was talking about. So the evening, we have the dark beginnings. The 24-hour day starts with the 12-hour dark cycle. Jah originated his heavenly domain in the darkness. The unformed earth material was submerged in the dark waters. His spirit moves upon the dark waters of the deep as he creates his heavenly domain. Then Jah says, let there be light, ending the first 12-hour darkness cycle. And morning begins. As morning begins, the 12-hour night ends and the 12-hour daylight cycle starts. The heaven and universe, what's up there, is illuminated. Lucifer and the angels are originated and begin to inhabit heaven with Jah and Joshua. The 24-hour day ends with the 12-hour light cycle. And this is how the angels were with the Father when he made the earth and everything. Once he brought the waters together, and they were all there. They become the watchers. So they were made on that first day. And that was my last slide, right? Yeah. So I said, again, the evening darkness cycle is first, right here. In the morning, the light cycle second. As I told you, we come from dark, watery wombs into the light. So this is what it is. Day one, all of this began. Then the rest of creation comes into play, and we'll talk about that another time. With that said, I want to give all praise to the Most High Father and the Son, Joshua, our Savior, for giving us life, the opportunity to have eternal life, and for his knowledge, wisdom, and understanding about him, his Son, salvation, and his coming kingdom. Praise the Most High. All right. Yeah, I think that's it for now. Just want to show this on the screen as a reminder. This is everything that happened on the beginning of creation. The first day. I'll end it with this.